behind me right now, brothers and sisters, because this ain't a day to be Negro slaves, brothers and sisters. We've got to stand up and speak the truth. Sister Kate, how you doing, my queen?
Brother, greetings, brother. Good evening, everybody. I'm good, thank you.
How's your week been?
Yeah, my week's been very, very busy, but it's been productive, so I'm grateful.
Fantastic, sister. I was wanting you to know that Hidden Truth loves you, beloved, and that, you know, you just keep doing what you're doing, spread the word. The feedback from last week was very fiery. Some were in agreement, some were saying, well, maybe not, I don't know. But all I do know is a time not to be standing in the corner, shaking like a leaf, okay? It's time for us to stand up. And so I will be asking you 1 or 2 questions today, not necessarily based on me, but I want to make sure. And I want to say to everyone on the platform, I personally have made several phone calls to try and get the Windrush ambassadors onto the platform tonight, or the Home Office onto the platform tonight. Not one of them have come back and said, yes, I'm on the platform with you tonight. I don't know what you take that how you want to take that, brothers and sisters. So don't ever say, Brother Andrew didn't question her, he didn't push her. I've invited the other so-called ambassadors to come on the platform. Up to now, not one person has accepted, because I will bring you on, brothers and sisters. I will bring you on. So, Sister Katie, you've raised the flag, sister. Keep flying, sister. I'm handing it over to you now, my queen.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I mean, anytime any one of the ambassadors or Home Office would like a meeting or whatever, I'd be happy for you to host it, or any of the brothers, to be honest. But anyway, moving forward swiftly. This evening, we are going to talk about the Windrush compensation scheme, but I'm going to talk about more so the intergenerational trauma. I'm just going to share screen with you. And then we can keep it moving. So we're going to, some of the people that are on this evening may not have seen my presentation last week. So I will talk about it briefly, but more so I'm going to be talking about the intergenerational trauma, the effects in real time, especially relating to our young people today and those of us that were born here, how this affects us. I'll be focusing on the current things that are happening in our community at the moment. So things like and other areas that affect the youth today. So going into the presentation, I'll quickly discuss, 1 second. I'll quickly discuss the eligibility criteria for those who may not have heard it, collecting your evidence and the application process before we go on to the main part of my discussion. So the compensation scheme was introduced in 2018. It opened in 2019 to offer payments to people who came to the UK from a British Commonwealth nation before the 1st of January 1973 and have been impacted by the Windrush scandal. The application forms, although there's different application forms for different people. So if you come before 1973, there's a specific form for you. That's the primary claimant form. If you are the child or other close family member, including siblings, parents, and grandchildren, and any other close family member that was significant in your experience, their application is the close family member application. There is application for family members that may have entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973 and have passed since, so they're no longer alive. There's a representative of an estate application for our deceased family members. And each of those applications discretionary area as well, where you can put any type of experience that isn't already formatted on the application. So people will ask, well, why are we being compensated? The reason being is the UK government realised that they'd made a mistake, and that they'd caused suffering due to the Windrush scandal, so they offer compensation as an apology. Some people were denied access to NHS services, welfare benefits, employment, education, homes, and so forth. When they shouldn't have been, because anybody that was born in a British Commonwealth nation and entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973 should have been a British citizen by birthright. The correct title is a British subject. So being a British subject just means that you are classed as a British citizen, but as you were born on British soil, whether that be the Caribbean, some African nations, and there's even some other nations on there, such as Asian nations. So because you were already born British, then when you come here, you should have been treated as such, and you shouldn't have had to struggle with the services that should have been free for you and easily accessible. Those are just some of the nations that are on there. As I said, there's African nations. This list has extended since in the past few months. So there is many nations that's not currently on this list that are eligible. So Nigeria is eligible. Ghana's eligible as well. So please, if you come from those communities or you have friends or family from those communities, please do share the information. So you'll be eligible if you come from a Commonwealth nation before the 1st of January 1973. Please do note that down. And if your family has come before them, in order to be eligible for the compensation, you must evidence how you've experienced loss, whether that be financial loss and other forms of non-financial loss as well, such as emotions, which I can actually show you later on in the presentation, where it's quoted on the government website that you can claim for non-financial losses such as emotional impact. And that would be due to your family member being questioned about proving their right to stay in the UK, or the right to live, or the right to work, or whatever their experience was. Now, some people did come to the UK before the 1st of January 1973 from a British Commonwealth nation, and they did have access to some services. For example, they may have had access to the NHS, but then they may have also struggled with accommodation or education or other different areas in life. Therefore, you would be eligible. Obviously, you're eligible for the areas that you've had a negative impact on. You know, anything that you do right on the applications, it's very, very, very important to provide evidence for that which you have suffered, not only or lost. Not only is it important to evidence what you're writing on the form, it's also absolutely vital to link it back to how the Windrush scandal has caused or led to this sufferation. As I was saying earlier, there are applications for our deceased family members who are no longer here, so long as they entered before the 1st of January 1973 from a British Commonwealth nation and have experienced loss or suffering when they were here, then obviously they are eligible. So when you apply for them, you have to prove that they would have been eligible by proving that they were born in the Caribbean or Africa or whichever nation they're from before that time, and also any proof that they arrived in the UK or lived in the UK. So whether they were naturalised or neutralised, whether they had a British passport, whether they were settled, whether they had indefinite leave to remain, or whether their status was still under question. Basically, they should be eligible on the basis that they were born as a British subject, remember. So when you apply on behalf of someone who is deceased, you will need their death certificate, and you will need to be the named person in their representative of an estate or will. So if your family member had a will, or you were named as their next of kin, or otherwise registered as their legal representative, then you would need to make an application on their behalf. Now, if your close family member who come before 1973, who is eligible for the scheme, does not have a next of kin or a legally named representative, then you can apply for costs to support a probate in court, where you would then become the legally named person. If you do already have one in your family, for example, it's one of your siblings, but you don't speak to them, then you would need to have a discussion with them or go to court. But I don't advise going to court because, you know, I don't advise to be fighting your family members in court for this compensation. So only one person can apply for a deceased family member who arrived before 73. However, you can all apply for yourselves individually as a close family member, so long as whatever has impacted them due to the scandal has impacted you and you can evidence that. Okay. If you are a person who arrived before the 1st of January 1973 and you're eligible for the scheme, then it's likely that your children and grandchildren are eligible for the scheme due to the impact in your life, due to that then going on to the way that you parent your children and the way that they experience childhood, and of course that then leading on to the way that they parent their children and their children's experience of childhood as well. And if there's any other legal reasons or whatever of why it's impacted your children or grandchildren, especially if you've been faced with deportation and, you know, or you have been deported or you were returned, or, you know, you were having those threats and that impacted you, of course, that's going to have an impact on your children. Now, if you come in that time before, if you come to the UK before 1973 and you were having issues with housing, for example, where there was a no blacks, no dog, no Irish policy, and it was a struggle to get accommodation, of course, your children probably grew up around that type of environment. You're probably moving house a lot and it's quite unstable, or you're living with friends or family. Where it can be overcrowded, of course, that can have an impact as well. And if you've been traumatized yourself as a parent and that's affected the way that you've kind of, you know, been stable when you've been raising your children and stuff, you can put all of that in as well, but please do evidence it. And some people will think, well, how am I going to evidence something that happened so long ago? Excuse me, I'm just going to have a drink. Well, there's different types of evidence. So we're going to look at evidence, but what I will explain is the different types of applications. So whether it's a primary application for the primary claimant who arrived in the UK before the 1st of January 1973 from a British Commonwealth nation, your application is the primary claimant application. Make sure you complete it on the correct application, please, because if you don't, the Home Office actually say to people, sorry, you're not eligible for the scheme. They don't say to you, well, your information looks correct. However, I think you've put it on the wrong form. It's likely that you're a close family member. They don't do that. They just tell you that you're not eligible. Then can mislead people into believing they're not eligible whatsoever. So please do make sure that it's on the correct form. So it's a primary claimant form for those who arrived before 1973. It's the close family member application form for those who are the children, siblings, partner, parents, or other close relative that's been impacted by what their close family members been through. Then your application form would be the close family member application. If you are applying on behalf of a deceased family member, then you need to choose the correct application, which is the representative of an estate application for deceased close family members who arrived before 1973. So if you were born, because some people will still ask questions about the application. So if you were born in a British Commonwealth nation and entered before 1973, it's a primary claimant. If you were born in the UK and you have a close family member that arrived in the UK before the 1st of January 1973 and what they've experienced has impacted your life, then you should be eligible for a claim. You're more than likely to be eligible. Your application would be the close family member application. Okay, deceased application is the deceased application, the representative of an estate is for our family members that are no longer alive. The reason why I repeat that is so that it is very, very clear to people. So please do make notes. So all of the different applications, they're set out in a similar way. The first part of the application is going to ask you for your personal information. So that's like your name, your address, your contact details. And then it will ask you whether you're British, whether you arrived before 73 as so whether you're a primary claimant or a close family member. And if you are a primary claimant on your application, it will ask you what type of status you currently have. So if you're a primary claimant, by the way, and you entered before the 1st of January 1973, you can only apply if you entered the country legally, meaning that you weren't like seeking asylum, because obviously you were supposed to be British subjects. You were British subjects by law. You just weren't treated that way. So if you did come with your official ID documents to this nation, despite of what happened to you since then, whether you've been threatened with deportation, whether you went back to your home nation even, you're still eligible for the scheme. So on the applications, once it asks what your current status is, or whether you were born here, or what type of applicant you are, then it will go on to questions about immigration. So the questions about immigration, they're mainly for people who are primary claimants or who have maybe been born here or not in a Commonwealth nation, but come to the UK on your parents' home travel documents. So for example, if you flew here on your mom's Caribbean passport, you were born somewhere in Europe, but then you come here and you settled here, then you may have had deportation issues. Some people that were born here, I've met people recently that said to me that they were in prison, and when they were in prison, the officers come to them and wanted to remove them from the country, although they were actually born here. So even if you are born here, sometimes you do have immigration issues. But yes, just going back to the personal information, make sure that you submit your ID. You would need to send personal ID such as your passport, biometrics, residence permanency card, any HMRC documents, any original letters from benefits agencies, so from the DWP, if you've been in receipt of benefits, that can prove who you are. If you have any household bills in your name registered at your address, if you have any if you have a driving license or provisional license, if you have any type of documents from the bank, if you have any confirmation from your solicitor confirming a recent house purchase or land registry document, you can use those type of documents to confirm who you are and where you live. Then going on to immigration, important documents to consider submitting if you did come to this nation before 1973, or actually if you come here after 73 but settled before 1988, then you can also be eligible for the scheme as well. So if you did come before any of those periods, then important documents for you to submit are any document that shows your entry to the country, any record of you being here. So some of you have employment records, some of you have health records, your NHS number, your national insurance number. Some of you have had bank accounts for a long time. Some of you have had the same GP for decades. Some of you had children here quite some time ago. Some of you have been on DWP benefits, universal credit, child benefits, housing benefits, those type of records. Any type of housing records, especially if you've used social housing, there it should be aware that you can contact your local councils and request documents on your addresses for the past, I don't know, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, depending how long you've been here. If you were naturalized or neutralized, if you were born as a Caribbean citizen, or if you were born in an African nation, for example, and you have original birth papers from your nation or your original passports, use that as evidence to show that you were not born in the UK. So obviously you arrived here before 73, and if you have become British since then, use that as evidence to show that obviously you've been here for some time in order to become British. Please do also feel free to contact the Home Office and request any of the documents that they have on you, such as any of the processes that you've been through with them relating to your immigration status. If you've ever been held in deportation centres, if you've ever been questioned under the Deportation Act, if you've ever been to court for any such related matters, if you've ever had to use legal representation for any such matters, then you should contact them and request evidence. You can do this by email, you can do this in writing, you can request for Freedom of Information Act requests to any official organisation, and they will have to respond to you by law within 28 days or 30 days. Sometimes the time frame differs with different organisations, but do contact them to get evidence of any type of impact that you've experienced due to your immigration status. Have you ever been to prison? Have you ever had records with the police? If you have records with the police, that can be evidenced. Because the reason why I'm saying this is because some members of our community who I've met and who I've helped apply have actually been homeless for a lot of their adult life, and they don't have any of the belongings other than what they stand up in. And they said to me, I don't have no records, but I've suffered a lot. This is my story. And then I've said to them, well, actually, what you have shared is that you were in care when you were younger, you have been in prison, you have been in and out of custody and arrested a number of times. That can be used as evidence that you have been in this nation for some time. Although you may feel it's a negative record, if that's all you have, then that's what you need to use to evidence that you have been here. Of course, as well, trauma, offending behavior, it's interlinked. I'm going to go into that very, very shortly. Yeah, so if you have been in care, again, you can contact social services. If you were adopted, you can contact the local authority that adopt that service, or independent agency that processed your adoption with your carers or parents. So you can get that information from them, just to evidence that you were adopted, to evidence that your parents were clearly struggling, and that's impacted your life. You can do that by the Freedom of Information Act, or you can request documents from any official institution, organisation, and you can request it as a DSAR request. So again, you need to put it in writing. You can email them, or you can write to them by hand or typing letter, post it to them, hand it to them. And this is what DSAR stands for. D is for data, S is for subject, A is for access, and R is for request. Data, subject, access, request. So it's abbreviated as DSAR, and what that means is if you request your documents under the data, subject, access request, then they should they should respond to you in writing and thank you for your request, advise you that they will respond to you within a specific time frame, and then they will get your documents to you. All organizations have to provide documents when you put either the DSAR request or the Freedom of Information Act request. Some people have sent requests off without using those legislations, and they're actually not been successful. But as soon as they've said that, honestly, they've received the documents, including myself as well. So anyway, yeah, once you get those type of evidences added to your application, whatever you don't evidence on your application, you're not going to be awarded compensation for. So evidence is everything. Health issues as well. Have you ever said that you're stressed or depressed, or has the doctor ever diagnosed you with anything like that, or anything like bipolar, schizophrenia, personality disorder, any of those type of issues? If that's been if that's been initiated by the trauma that you've been through, or the way that you were parented by your parents who were traumatized by the Windrush scandal, then of course that needs to go on your application. You need to contact your GP or the NHS or whichever service you have used, and get that evidence. If you was ever in the armed services as well, they'll have records of that. If you've ever been in employment, they will have record that as well. There's categories of award. The categories of award, so areas in which you can claim for, which you've been able to claim for. There is a new category as well as of last month, November. I think it was on November the 11th, the Home Office have now decided to award people compensation for homelessness. Previously, they didn't award people that experienced homelessness as part of the impact from this scandal. They never used to award people for it, but they have now agreed to award people for it. So the categories of award are employment. So if you've had issues in employment, if you were ever turned away because you couldn't prove your right to stay, because your documents were Caribbean and they didn't understand that you were still a British citizen as a British subject, or they didn't understand, the nationalisation or naturalisation certificates, and you've been wrongfully dismissed, then you can try and get evidence of that if the organisations you've worked at are still open, and use that for your application. Detention, deportation, removal and returns. Again, contact the services that you've used, or the courts or the solicitors that you've used as evidence. Housing and homelessness. If you've ever had issues with housing, then you can put that on there. If you've had to experience living in poor housing, and that's been a direct impact of the way that you've suffered in this society as not being treated as a British subject, or being the child of those who have not been treated as British subjects, and then put that on the application as well. Education, impact of normal daily life, immigration fees and associated legal costs, and there's also a wider discretion on every application, just in case there's any of those areas that you've been affected by that are not yet categorized on the application. So the process is, once you've collected and collated all of your evidence in line with what you've said, then collect your evidence, correct application form, the primary form, the close family member form, or the representative of an estate application. Make sure it's a correct form. Do read the guidance that's online. So when you go on the government website, the www.gov website, if you put in /Windrush-the-compensation-scheme, if you type in that, you'll see the applications there. Click on the correct application. You can print it or download it and type on it now. They never used to do that before, so that's a little bit improved. We still should be able to apply online though, because you can apply online for universal credit. You can apply online for all compensation claims to do with car accidents or whatever. I'm not sure why we can't apply directly online. So once you complete it, submit it to the Home Office. Anyway, moving forward, once you've completed the form, kind of write it like a timeline, a chronology, like a biography, what's happened to you. So if you were left alone in the Caribbean nations, African nations, or other nations as children by your parents, it's very likely that you've suffered trauma, abandonment trauma, maternal deprivation, attachment issues. You may have suffered other forms of abuse whilst you were there, maybe neglect or whatever. I apologize if this is bringing up any negative memories for people, but it's very important that I state this so you actually understand how you're eligible. Okay, things what you've experienced, please do note it on the application in a timeline. When I was 6, I got left alone. When I was 10, mom tried to send for me, it was unsuccessful. When I was 13, she tried again, it was unsuccessful. When I was 16, it was successful. At 17, I arrived in the UK. When I arrived here, this is what I experienced. Put it like that. I started working once I was 19, for example, like a nice chronology in order, so it's very clear for them to read. You don't have to be a fabulous writer. You just have to be able to write how this has impacted you, what you've experienced in relation to the trauma from the scandal, either direct trauma from arriving here before 73, or the intergenerational trauma that has impacted you due to what your parents and grandparents have experienced, or other close family members. Once you write it in a timeline and explain it, you have to elaborate so they understand, because a lot of the people who are reading these applications don't actually come from our community. So and depending on their level of training or even understanding of what really happened, they're going to have a limited understanding. So it's really up to you to explain in full detail how it has impacted you emotionally, spiritually, mentally, culturally, because remember there's cultural assimilation and all of those things, which we're going to discuss now. Once you've completed the form, written it out nicely, what's very, very important is that you photocopy the application. When you photocopy the application, that will, or even take a picture on your smartphones, and once you do that, you have evidence. Okay, you can either email it to them on the email address below. Please do note down these addresses that are on the bottom of my screen, and on the bottom of your screen now whilst I'm talking, because I am going to quickly go on to the next slide in a minute. So please do, once you've copied them, then send off your application. You can write it by hand, you can type it, but you need to print it, post it off to them, or email it off to them. And then once you do that, copy it, as I said, and then you can, it's free post, as you can see the free post address there for the UK, free post, Windrush compensation scheme, United Kingdom, Sheffield, the postcode's there, S for Sierra 38WA. So please do make sure that you put the correct address on there, send it off. It is a free post. Some people still like to use stamps, that's fine. Make sure you send it off and then give them a little time to write to you. If you haven't had a response about 2 weeks, give them a call, ask them if they received your application. They'll write to you once they receive your application. Once they receive your application, it will have a reference number on. Once it has a reference number on there, you need to take note of that reference number. Any letter what they send you, do not lose that letter. You need to keep that letter, and you cannot lose the reference number. If you lose the reference number, it's going to be very hard for you to be able to get information from them, because of course they've got to think of protecting your data and information, so they ain't going to give you nothing unless you give them your reference number. Once you give them your reference number, they'll update you. They will advise you that they've received your application, that they're processing it. In due time, it will go to a case decision maker. They will make a decision on whether you're eligible or not. They will write to you to let you know whether you are. They may write to you to let you know whether they require more information. If they advise you that you're not eligible, do ask them, could it be the case that I've applied on the wrong application? Okay, make sure you ask them that, just so they give you the answer, just so you don't think that you're not actually eligible, because you could well be, as I said earlier. So yeah, track your application. It should go to a second decision maker. They're going to make a decision on the amount of compensation that they think that your claim is worth. They'll contact you with an offer. If you think it's substantial, then you respond and you advise them that you would like to receive that the payment. You give them your bank details. They will only send it to a bank account with your name and your details on there, sorry. And then you sign it to say you agree, send it off. They'll send you your money in your account. It can take 3 to 6 weeks, I think they say, but actually sometimes it can arrive before 3 weeks. So yes, sometimes it can take longer. As I said, sometimes they do tell you that you're not eligible. If they do tell you that, you do have the right to appeal. You do have the right to request for it to be escalated to an external adjudicator, an independent adjudicator, sorry. So yes, you can appeal if you don't agree with the offer. You can appeal if you don't agree with them saying that you're not eligible. Collect any evidence that suggests that you are eligible, or actually disproves anything that they're trying to suggest to you. Then collect any evidence, and then respond back to them. If they're still if they're still say that you're not eligible, then do seek advice. There's many people in the community that are willing to support you to escalate this further. There's myself, there's there's Empress Anua, who's on Galaxy Radio. You can call in her show and ask questions. We're in close contact. Sister Cheryl Phoenix, her Instagram. I will soon be launching my own Instagram as well for the Windrush compensation scheme support specifically, where we can be offering more support. As well, I do have an event where you can come down this Sunday in Croydon, from 12 p.m. till 6 p.m, where I'll be delivering this presentation in person. We will also be supporting people to fill out their own applications. Please do make sure that you do bring your own applications, because the Home Office, you know, they won't send me any applications. They said they're too expensive to send, although it's a free scheme. And although if 300 people called up for an application individually, they'd be happy to send that. For some reason, you know, it's too expensive for me to request 300 applications. So please do request your applications or print them yourselves. Bring them down to the Seventh Day Church of God, Derby Road, Croydon, CR0. Come down there this Sunday, the 11th of December, and our event's 12 till 6 p.m. if you didn't hear that already. Of course, there's Windrush ambassadors. I'm not really sure what they do. It's not really clear to me what they do, but of course, you have the right to reach out to them and to anybody else or any other organisation that you are aware that offer the support. There's so many people in our community. Me alone, I can't help everyone, although I would love to. So please do reach out to everyone, and please do take as much information as possible. Do your own research, of course, that's most important, but do care to listen in now, because we're going into the cycle of intergenerational trauma. Again, apologies if this triggers anyone, that's not my intention, but I do really need to explain to you the level of how this has impacted us. Okay, so
Hey, sister,
yep.
just before you go into that section, and you can only, if you want to spend only 30 seconds, whatever, it's up to you, sis. But one of the emails and the messages I received is that by you doing what you're doing, and this is a question, and I'd like to hear your response to this, is that you're clogging up the system with encouraging so many people to claim, and they're not worthy of being claimed, and it's stopping other people who is worthy of being claimed from getting their claims done quickly and efficiently. What is your response to that, sister?
My response to that is, this has been a rhetoric that has been repeated specifically by people from the Home Office that claim to be Home Office ambassadors. My understanding is that Home Office ambassadors should be promoting the scheme, and they should not be concerned about the system being clogged up. If that's the case, I'm sure there was £500 million that the government offered towards this scheme. If it's a case that you know, there's lots of applications and the Home Office is understaffed, then they should look at whether they are able to use some of that 500 million to provide more staff members in order to open up more opportunity for applications to be processed by providing more staff members. Furthermore, my issue is not with the Home Office being clogged up. My aim is to ensure that our community members are aware of the scheme. There's many people who are eligible who have not even applied. Now, the thing is my information, again, it can be tracked by the government website. The thing is it's concerning to me why members of the Home Office, the ambassadors, or whoever sent the emails, if it wasn't them, which obviously no one in the community is going to be concerned about the clogging up of their Home Office. Anyway, my concern is this: there's a free scheme for members to apply to. There's a clear criteria. The criteria is copied and pasted onto my presentation. Even if my presentation was misinforming people, everyone can go onto the government web, which it isn't. But even if it was, people are free to go on the government website and see the live criteria there. The government are not going to, you know, put what I say on their website. They're going to put what the actual criteria is. So again, you know, if you look on the government website and you feel that you fit the criteria or you're not sure, the only way to understand is by looking at the guidance, listening to the information that I share here, completing the application. It is not the ambassadors or any agent's responsibility, or even the Windrush helpline, not even the admin staff on the phone, should tell anybody whether they are or are not eligible. Their role is to either share information, that the helpline is to send people applications and to advise people how to apply. Okay, that's their role. They are not trained to, paid to or experienced enough to assess applications or claims. So if any of them are telling you that you're not eligible, then that is entirely wrong. The only place that can tell you whether you're eligible or not is the Home Office, the Windrush compensation scheme. You apply, and if you're not eligible, or they say you not, do appeal, because they've been telling eligible people that they're not eligible. You may need to use a solicitor. However, there's also many people in our community that have successfully applied, including me, including my father, including several members of my family, including many other people in the community as well. So, you know, it's not like I'm just making this up or I'm just, you know, haven't studied it or whatever. So, you know, the information that I'm sharing is accurate, and I don't business, none at all, whether the system gets clogged up or not. I want people to apply and to get what they deserve. And of course, I would like that to be as timely as possible. However, is it more important that each of us get what is owed, or is it more important that people are discouraged to apply, don't apply when they're very likely to be eligible, just because we're concerned, oh, let's slow down for the Home Office. Now, do you know what else that concerning comment leads to? And it's so funny, because obviously if they've sent it to you on email, brother, then obviously we know who sent that email. If they're using a genuine email, that's if, right? Anyway, that those people who have said that rhetoric, so Mimi Frank said it, the agent who popped on the chat last week and got shut down. Pastor Alton Bell, who tried to diss me and my partner Cheryl Phoenix on video, tried to call us out on social media, and we ignored him because he's irrelevant. Both of them are Home Office ambassadors, volunteers that claim that they're employees, and they've both said that comment, right? So it's very funny that this comment is coming from them too. Does that not look concerning? Because nobody else has said this comment. Nobody cares about it, as we saw in the comment section last week. Anyway, just my closing comments on that question is, what's concerning is you're mentioning this message that's clearly you've been given by the Home Office to come as little puppets and say, oh, hi, it's clogging up the system, blah, blah, blah. We don't care, number one. And number two, is that the reason why you and the Home Office haven't done what you were supposed to be doing as Home Office ambassadors and as a Windrush engagement team and as a Windrush compensation scheme by promoting the scheme properly? Is that why? Because you were scared of it being clogged up? Or are you really scared that it's being clogged up? Or are you really scared that now mass people are learning about the scheme, they're going to apply for these funds that you owe them, right? And then not only are they going to apply for the funds that you owe them, but we're going to start to see that you've been misspending and misallocating these funds. That's why companies like We Are Digital, an all-white company, not based in London, nothing to do with the Windrush era or community, have got £1 million to do what I'm doing. Where are they all now? Why don't the community know about them? It's me, one, doing this. That's all I've got to say, brother. Thank you for the question.
Powerful, sister. I hear you loud and clear. I hear you loud and clear.
Any more questions?
No, sister, I just wanted to throw that one out because I was accused of
Okay.
not challenging you last week. So I'm just throwing out 1 or 2 questions. But also we get to the questions and answers a bit later. But sister, I'm bowing to you. That's me personally. I'm bowing to you, sister. Continue, my queen.
Thank you, brother. And I just want to say, any challenge is welcome by anyone from the Home Office, from any of the Home Office ambassadors, agents, or whatever. I'm only going to do it on a platform with a trusted organization. I'm not going to do it on a platform where I believe that the people who host the show will bow. That's not how I roll. So yeah, any questions, any challenge. Brother Andrews gave you the opportunity to challenge me live and direct. Mimi attempted. I do respect her for her attempt. Obviously, it wasn't successful for her, but again, I welcome any challenge. I'm not doing anything wrong. It's 100% genuine, coming from the love in my heart, so any challenge is welcome. Thank you. Moving on to the cycle of intergenerational trauma. So many people say that, how will it affect those of us here that are born in the UK? So just in case you didn't hear me last week or you weren't here last week, I'm mixed race. I'm born in the UK. My mom's white. My dad's from Jamaica. He arrived in 1971. He experienced issues. Although he did join the army and stuff, and he did come here legally. He was invited here by the Queen. He still doesn't have his British passport to date, and he also become eligible for the scheme because he was in a deportation centre. So so if your family members have been in deportation centres, of course they're eligible for the scheme, but there's a myth being spread that unless you've had that type of issue, you won't be awarded compensation. That's not true. If you've had immigration issues, or if you've had any type of loss, now once I take my presentation down, because I can only share one document at a time, once I take this down, I'm going to show you a direct screenshot where that is evidenced on the government website, okay? And that was only updated on the 10th of November, 5 days after my last event. Anyway, yeah. If they've been threatened with deportation, or even the fact that they had to pay and queue and be threatened with deportation with their naturalization or neutralization certificates some decades ago, then that classes as an immigration issue. If they had a biometric residency permanency card, that's an immigration issue. Because that's evidence that their legal status was challenged. So it's not just if you've been in a deportation centre, as some people may try and say. Again, this can be evidenced on the government website. Yes, and then obviously if you're their children, what they've impacted, how that's impacted you. This is what we're going to speak about right now. Brother Andrew, how much time do I have left, please?
Wow, that is a good question, sister.
Just because I can speak, but I wanna,
I
if
know,
I've got limited
sister,
time.
I really love your passion. 25 minutes at the max.
Okay, cool. Right. So, some people may think, well, what does intergenerational trauma mean, or what does intergenerational mean? So, it means the same thing. If you've heard of generational trauma or intergenerational trauma, it basically means the same thing. It means how what our previous generations have been through impacts us, or how what we've been through will impact our younger generations as well. Okay. And that's not just in our bloodline, but also in our community and in our culture. Just like, for example, has anybody heard the term post-traumatic slavery disorder? Now, people today, us now living right now, we can experience trauma, and we should maybe do another show about intergenerational trauma and the effects of it, because there's actually some scientific evidence as well that also now agrees. So the mainstream scientists agreed, I think it was last year or the year before, they now agree that we can intergenerational trauma, and that makes things such as post-traumatic slavery trauma, it can be real, very, very real. So anyway, all of that to say that basically, how can it affect, say for example, a 20-year-old boy now that's living with his friends and stuff, that's been born in the UK, and his parents or grandparents come from the Windrush era. Okay, so if his grandparents come to England whilst leaving the remaining children in our homelands, then that means that the children that got left at home grew up without their main caregiver. The reason why I call it main caregiver, that's a specific terminology in psychological theory. The theory is called, write this down, please, attachment disorder. Attachment disorder, and you know, again, I'm not making this up or whatever. I'm actually qualified to say this. I am a qualified social worker. I have a master's in social work. My undergraduate degree is in psychology, sociology with politics and research as well. So, you know, this information is accurate. It's not just imagined or opinionated or whatever. Moving on swiftly. So the main caregiver, that's the terminology used in attachment theory. It's written by a psychologist called Bowlby. You can write this down if you want to. His name starts with B for Bravo, O-W, L for Lima, B for Bravo, Y, Bowlby. research attachment theory by Bowlby, right? A good site to look on where it's very easy to read, where it's written in like normal language, not loads of complex language, is Simply Psychology. It's an excellent website where you can read basically any psychological issues on there written in like layman's terms, aka normal language. So go on Simply Psychology, type in attachment theory. Then also, this is another theory I need everybody to research. I won't have enough time to speak about it tonight, although I would love to. So attachment theory, and then that also leads on to attachment theory is a disorder and its own psychological disorder, but there's also maternal deprivation, which is a development to attachment disorder, but you can have both or you can have either. So there's attachment disorder and then maternal deprivation. Maternal is spelled M for mother, A-T-E-R, N for November, A-L. Maternal deprivation. Deprivation spelled D for Delta, E for Echo, P for Papa, R for Romeo, I for Indigo, V, deprivation, okay? V-A-T-I-O-N. So maternal deprivation, that's a psychological disorder caused by trauma of being alone in early childhood by your main caregiver, which is your mum. You can suffer from paternal deprivation as well, but it's different with moms because remember, naturally, mothers were supposed to breastfeed and those type of things. You're born in your mom's stomach, you know, well, you develop in your mom's stomach and those type of things. So naturally, we are supposed to have a close bond with our mothers when we are born. And that close bond helps you to develop your neurofunction, your brain, your thinking, your mind, your mental health. And it also helps you to develop an understanding of how to love, how to be loved. Okay. Now remember what I said, because it's very powerful. Love and how to be loved when you're loved by your mother as a child. Okay. However, and again, sorry if this causes upset for anyone, but if you experience childhood and you were left alone as your parents in your home nations and you grew up without them, whether you grew up with your grandma or your other relatives and they were kind to you and you had a good experience, right? It still affects you. Even if you never saw them from the day you were born, or you can't remember seeing them until you was a teenager, until you arrived, or even if you're in the Caribbean and you've still never got the opportunity to arrive and your parents come here and left you alone, of course you're going to be traumatized. Now, if you've never been shown how a true if you've not experienced that attachment to your mom, that close bond, which is developed through her breastfeeding you, her nurturing you, her listening to your cries, knowing what your cry is for, feeding you on time. You know, you learn to trust. You learn trust through. That's where you first learn trust as a child, through that relationship. And that's where you can also learn shame, embarrassment, guilt, and all of those negative feelings, and abandonment. That's where you can also, children in early childhood, they seek attention from the main caregiver. If it's not the mom, you may be doing it with your grandparents. They may not have had opportunity because they may have had other children in the house. So you may have grown up on some significant nurturing in early childhood, leading to you having a kind of blinded view of what a true relationship is. What does love really mean? Have I ever really experienced love? What is an appropriate relationship? What are healthy boundaries in relationships? Because you may not have seen that. But also, sorry, you may have many of our elders were married. Many of the elders in our community, they were married and they stayed together. So, you know, and you may have grew up in that environment, but also you may still have grown up with parents that were traumatized, and because they were traumatized, the way they treated each other in their relationship, especially with the hostile environment in the UK at the time, in society, you know, even the white UK admit it was a hostile environment. Enoch Powell was in power then. You know, there's lots of writings, publications about the hostile environment in the UK around those times. Of course, racism and stuff in society, then being denied services, which is institutional oppression, institutional racism. You've got the football hooligans and all of them people, then the teddy boys and all of that. Then you've got the police who turn a blind eye to racism and even practice racism themselves, or killers like they have to many people from our community. Of course, then you've got no access to healthcare. You're being told, well, you've got this condition, and we can treat you so long as you can pay this much £1,000. Yet you're struggling with work because they're saying you're not British. Now, again, not everyone had no housing, no employment, no had some things but didn't have access to others. Speak to your elders, because you might think, oh, it won't affect my granddad, he had a good job and he's got a British passport, but ask him, because actually when I've spoken to elders and they've said to me, oh, it doesn't apply to me and I'm not eligible. Even an elder that owns a shop in Northwest London, he was like, no, British straight away, British passport that is. I opened my business, do business all this time, but then we spoke about other experiences where he has been where he had issues with other areas of life, such as education or seeking employment. That's why he went into owning a business and things like that, and also trauma as well of other family members coming or not being able to come or separated from them because they got deported as well. That's also what you'll be adding to the form anyway. So of course the children who came to the UK at a later date, once they were left in the Caribbean or African nations, they will have come here, and some of them will have met new siblings that their parents would have had, or their parents would have had to other people, so they've got a whole new sub-family now. And then that would have caused negative feelings for a lot of people, such as feeling that they're being replaced by their parents, and thinking, well, how could you abandon me just to come here and have other children? There can be disputes between siblings, such as the children from African nations or Caribbean nations having disputes with their siblings that were born in the UK, calling them, oh, you're too English, man, you're like a white man or like a white woman, and then saying you're like a Yardi or you're a proper African. And those type of disputes happened a lot. I see that from the number of people that I help and the type of issues that they explain to me. So yeah, so of course that can cause friction between siblings. It can cause further ill feelings towards the parents. There's still people that have fractured relationships with their parents if their parents are still alive. Some people had fractured relationships with their parents, and due to the trauma from the Windrush scandal, they weren't able to kind of resolve and repatriate their relationship before their parent or close family member died, unfortunately. So it has had a massive, deep impact. The impact that this has had on us, I don't even think the Home Office are even aware yet, and that's why they continue to extend their criteria in their application. And it's still ongoing. The head of the Windrush compensation scheme himself, he said in a meeting recently with me and my colleague, he advised, well, he shared actually, he said, I'll be honest, we don't know that much about impact of life. That's what they've said, but I do, because of course I've seen it in my father, I've seen it in my elder brother, I've seen it in my family, how it's impacted us. I remember being scared when I thought my dad was going to be deported, and how it's impacted my life. And and I know it's many people have been through it. So I know about the impact. This is why I'm doing this part of the presentation specifically. It's very important that you listen and take notes. And I know that while I've been speaking as well, many of you would have had thoughts in regards to what you've experienced, and this will bring up some things for you. So I know it will bring up negative things, but try and see it as a positive now, because actually you can forgive yourself and you can forgive your family members, because now even the UK are admitting, look, we're sorry. I'm not saying that's acceptable, by the way. I'm just saying that they've acknowledged that they done something very, very wrong that is very, had a massive impact on our lives. So, try and forgive yourselves and your family members maybe for the decisions that you've made or things that you've been through. So anyway, for those, so once the family do arrive to the UK now, whether the parents have come here, some of the children have come here, some have remained, some of you will have never seen your siblings that got left abroad when you come here, or when you were born here. You probably may not have even known siblings until later years when they just arrived, and that can be very traumatic and make us have a kind of dysfunctional setting in our family. And of course that will have a negative impact on our psyche, on our mind, basically. having a dysfunctional family. So of course your family members are traumatized because of what they've been through coming here, the racism, being denied services, being kicked out of houses left, right and center, being treated like criminals, like immigration officers, when in fact you haven't even broken no laws. You were advised to come here for a better life because the UK wanted to build their workforce. They wanted people in the army, they wanted people in the NHS. So to invite you to then treat you like this and then treat you so badly that it's even affecting your grandchildren for generations moving forward, it's not okay. And this is why you need to apply. Okay. Again, make sure you evidence, because as you can see from the question that Brother Andrew asked, right, and the question that Mimi stated, and the comment that, sorry, the comment that Mimi Frank stated in the meeting last week. For those of you that don't know, some agent, and I will call her that because that's years, some agent written in the comments, oh, this information's not correct. So I said, bring her on. I said, bring her on because I'd like to speak to her, because they've been saying that on social media, but I ain't got time to go back and forth on social media. It doesn't serve me or the community. So when they were on here though, I just had to. So I said, come on, let's see what you've got to say. She then said my presentation's 80% correct. 80% correct. I'd love to know how she come to that conclusion. What type of you know, what type of calculation she done to state that. Even still, even if it was 80%, that's excellent. If you got 80% in, will pass, okay. But anyway, it's way more than 80% accurate. Anyway, as they were saying, what they're saying is we're clogging the applications. We should not worry about that whatsoever. The type of suffering that we've been through due to the Home Office, are we now supposed to feel sorry for them? Because, oh, well, they might be overworked and they might be overstretched. Honestly, it's not a con. We are eligible. You have to prove the eligibility by meeting the criteria. You do not have to have had immigration issues in order to be able to make a successful claim. You will have had to have your right to live and stay questioned. But I mean, immigration issues is such as people actually believe when they hear that, oh, you need to have a faced immigration issue in order to be successful. People assume that means you have to have had like been in the immigration center or been at court or whatever. It doesn't, you know. As I said, on naturalization paper, anytime you've got been questioned of whether you're British with any public services, and also even if, for example, you've been kicked out of houses and all that because they were trying to say that you're not British and so forth, that is enough to make you eligible for the scheme. Honestly, it is, but you have to evidence it. Okay, so going back to the presentation, as I was saying, growing in a dysfunctional environment, we all know that causes psychological difficulties. Okay, social services know it. That's why, remember, that's why social services will remove children, because their family is dysfunctional because of your impact on the children emotionally. Well, this is kind of similar, right? Growing up in a house with dysfunctional parenting due to family members being traumatized due to the scandal, that's then caused you to have a psychological impact now, right? So if you're a close family member and you're born here and you say, do you qualify? If you were a close family member, of course you don't need to have immigration issues or you know, have to had issues to prove your right to stay because you're born here, but your family member would, and that's what makes you eligible if you've suffered. So as I was saying, if you have evidence that you've suffered mentally, emotionally, and all of that, then you can make a claim on that basis. Again, if you've suffered psychologically or mentally, remember that with poor mental health, other factors in society associated with that. Poor mental health is then associated with unemployment, which is then associated with crime, which is then associated with prison, which is then associated with further mental health, and it's a cycle. That's why it says the cycle of intergenerational trauma. It's a non-stop cycle basically, and only very few of us kind of break the cycle, right? And you know, large up to those of us that are able to break the cycle. weren't able to break the cycle yet, then focus on doing that, but do make sure that you get this money to help you to do just that. Once you do get successful applications, please do make sure that you do use some of the funds to invest back into the community, please. That's very, very, very essential. One area where they've attacked us, which I do love about the Nation of Islam, I have to big them up every time, is the Nation of Islam do promote economics, right? What's very important is economics in our community. Remember that they say, oh, Black people were successful, blah, blah, blah. Black people, you know, they're broke, da, 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 da. The thing is you see everything what I explained about people being denied access to employment, to education, to housing. If you don't have no house, how are you going to work? If you don't have no house, how are you going to school? It's not possible. There's issues with housing, listen keenly, there's issues with housing now, there's issues with employment, there's issues with work, you've got ill health, you can't get support, being denied benefits. How is that going to affect your mental health even further? So all of that, right, key reasons as to why we are not financially as advanced as other communities. Do you understand me? So going back to agendas that are held against us, finances, economics. This is one of the agendas that they've used against us. We need to apply, due to the suffering of what they've put specifically Caribbean people in, but of course other members of the Windrush era as well, our brothers and sisters from African nations, but still some of our brothers and sisters from African nations, which I'm very proud of, are some of the richest people in the world, like Nigeria, they're richer than their white peers in a lot of places, including America. You know, it's one of the richest nations in Africa. Ghana is one of the fastest developing nations in Africa. I use some of my money. I got £20,000 due to the impact on my life from what my dad went through. And I use some of them to purchase land in Ghana. And we're going to be developing on it soon. I don't want to say too much online because I don't like to announce things before it's time. But yes, please do invest in the community. Of course, spend some money on living because life is to live. It's not just here to exist. Invest in yourself and have fun and have a good time. The thing is not only do they owe us for the suffering emotionally, but also remember, if our parents did have access to the appropriate housing and education and healthcare, they may have lived longer. They may have been more financially stable. Well, in fact, it's very likely that they would have been more financially stable, not just maybe. So if they're more likely to be financially stable and more mentally stable and emotionally stable and spiritually stable and culturally stable, because assimilation was very, very like heavily promoted in our community once our family members arrived. That does affect us, especially when you're trying and it's not successful and you realize it's because there's institutional racism, not because there's wrong with you. All of that happening as well, right? As I was saying, it's not just financial losses. We need to put all losses down there. All of that would have affected the quality of life. If they had better jobs, if they had access to housing, if they had all of these things, they would have had, their quality of life would have been better. They could have lived longer, and our quality of our childhood would have been better, and our family experience and those things. So with all of that said, I believe I've only got a few minutes left. So as I was saying, I'm going to relate it to the young people of today, right? So growing up in a dysfunctional household now, your household's dysfunction, everyone's trying, but they're traumatized. Sometimes we can be our own worst enemy, we can't see it. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes we misuse substances to kind of self-medicate. That can make us worse. People who take drugs act very different when they're on drugs compared to what their natural personality is. They may rob stuff from you, they may harm you, they may call you names, they may say things that they never would say if it wasn't for the addiction. And we've had to suffer some of that, some of us. And growing up in that's why some of these young boys growing up to see their moms on drugs or prostitution or whatever, just mental health or physical health or whatever, growing up in that type of environment leads them to think they need to kind of go out and make money for for their mums. They don't know how to make money. They've got elders on the block promoting drugs to them. They're going out there. They're now doing country lines or whatever just to get money to bring home, and they're putting themselves at risks. Now they've got to carry knives because they're drug dealers, and there's opposing gangs. You know, then they're carrying knives now to protect themselves and to protect their gangs. They're also at risk of being killed. They are killing each other. Not as much as the news promotes, by the way. They promote violence between black youth more than they do white youth. It happens all the time up north where I'm from. You never see it on the news. Very strange. But anyway, moving forward, seeing all of this, you know, your parents being sectioned or going in and out of prison and all of that due to their poor mental health and their criminality, due to them not being able to get a job, then of course it's going to affect how the youth are today. And then certain situations you see their parents in, they don't want to respect their parents anymore. Some young people, they become you know, they're too challenging to manage. You know, they become, services call it beyond parental control, meaning that they're not listening to their parents are struggling, they may have other children, and it just goes round and around and around. The smaller children now see the door getting kicked off by the police, house getting raided, brothers in and out of prison, you know, those type of things. That all affects us. And honestly, if you look into it properly and you research what I said about attachment disorder, about institutional about attachment disorder, about maternal deprivation, about institutional racism, about the environment. These are all things to research to give you more background on how to explain your form, because some of us are not the best writers. Remember, this is how you evidence this. If you've ever had depression, anxiety, stress, attachment disorder, and those type of things on your medical records, you can use it for this. If you've ever had counseling, therapy, if you've ever been in care, those type of things. If you've never been able to repatriate the relationships with your family members, if family members that live in close proximity to you but you don't really talk, these are all things that you need to put on your form. Even the fact that if you saw your parents in domestic violence relationships and then you entered domestic violence relationships because you thought that was kind of normal when you were growing up, or you've even been the perpetrator to domestic violence. Do you know why? Although I'm not saying, you know, just write how bad you are on the form, but the reason why I'm saying this is because you're explaining how much you've been affected, and only will truly understand if you state what you've really been through, and then you evidence this by records. You see what I mean? And then you link it back to the Windrush compensation scheme, back to the Windrush scandal, back to the Windrush scam, based on this intergenerational cycle of trauma. And there you go. That's it from me on my presentation. I welcome any questions. Apologies if this has caused you any upset, but please, when you're filling out the application, take time with yourself. Take time with yourself. If you feel it's a bit too much, have a break, go away and come back to it when you feel ready. Do complete the form. Don't care about the system being clogged up. Did they care about us? Did they care about our eyes being clogged up? My dad was in the deportation center, or your mom was. Do you know what I mean? Did they care about our eyes clogging up when siblings left here in the UK by their parents who got deported? No, they didn't care, did they? All right then. Thank you, Brother
Brothers
Andrew.
and sisters, come on, man. Don't let me have to say the words, man. Come on, just come on. Sister Katie, you are a living legend in our community, sister. And oh wow, what a night. First half of the show was Sister Ngozi. We just had to make it plain. Legend. Second half of our show, Sister Katie. But brothers and sisters, before we start the questions in the comments, if we can come off share screen, sister. If we can come off share screen, my queen. Thank you so much. What a night, brothers and sisters. I am so moved. And guess what? We've got a little prize for you tonight. Behind me, a sister in front of me. But brothers and sisters, I did not plan this, but guess what? We got our sister herself on the platform tonight, brothers and sisters. And remember, this is a sister who's been attacked. Look at, that's ITV News. This is the voice, man, okay, for standing up for freedom.
It's not right.
I've been attacked. So Sister Ngozi, are you there, sister?
Hi, can you hear
Brothers and
me?
sisters, come on, my
Greetings,
queen. We
sister.
can hear you. Before you say anything, Sister Ngozi, brothers and sisters, drop some ones for
My family, man.
Katie, Sister Ngozi, man. Come on. Show her the love that you've got, man. Sister
Wow.
Ngozi, how are
Thank
you, my
you.
queen?
I just quickly wanted to come on to say a big thank you to everybody, you know. It has been a journey over the last few days. I want people to know, not because you don't hear me, doesn't mean I'm not here, you know. I needed to, first of all, Brother Andrew, you who have backed Sister Space before everybody knew what Sister Space was. The first year we existed, you did a fundraiser and you paid our rent for a year. That was about 7-8 years ago. And so I had to come. Family, I am well. Please know that I am well. The last few days have been mad, right? Just very want to quickly address the big old rhinoceros in the room, right? Which is people that look like me trying to come for me. Yeah.
Oh, there, sister, man. I've just calmed down. Don't take me there again.
Let me tell you something, yeah? We read about those people in the history books. We read about them in the history books. And so to those people who want to tell me I shouldn't be at Buckingham Palace, I shouldn't be at Alexander Palace, I shouldn't be at Crystal Palace, the message I need to get out today is wheresoever I need to go to back my sisters who are going through domestic abuse, that is where I will go, okay? No, I can't prove, there's no way that I'm going to please everybody. Everybody's going to have something to say. Those who want to stand in judgment of me, right? Does that mean that there is a price? There is a place that you are a part-time warrior? Do you stop at certain barriers? I don't, all right? So even though you don't hear me coming back at you, yeah?
We're watching.
Let me tell you something. To those people, here it is. I give it back. Your nastiness, I give it back to you. You hold it. Your issue is yours. I can't fight every battle, so I'm continuing to fight the battle. When Child Q was there, when our sisters are out there getting knocked from pillar to post or abused, I don't see those voices. I don't hear those voices. When we're in the belly of the beast, I don't see or hear those voices. Therefore, let them remain silent. I wanted to just come on briefly, give thanks to everybody, and I'm just in love. I'm here with Sister Rose. The sister space at the moment has to close because people have found out where I live, where I work, and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, and it is in hand. All jobless, all jobless. No man can curse. So I am good, and with that, nothing but love.
Come on, sister. Come on, brothers and sisters. Don't let me get vexed tonight. That they don't know that this sister is loved and protected by us, man. This was Sister Ngozi. When Child Q... Oh, don't let me get vexed, sisters. Some of you silly people say, what is she doing at Buckingham Palace? Oh, come on, man. Grow up, brethren. This fight is on all levels, brethren.
But I want, Brother Andrew, I need to, those people who think that I should limit where I go on this earth, right?
Come on.
If it is you that chooses that you can't be in that space because it's not for us, then that is your thing. You have it. There is, I say again, this whole world belongs to me. I will go anywhere I will go into the fire for mine. Yeah? I don't judge anybody for staying at the door or staying down the road because they don't feel like they belong in this place. Yeah? That's yours. Don't give it to me. Again, I hand it back to them. I give thanks.
And some of you say, oh, why is she British? And you say, oh, I'm African.
Why?
But then you're saying it with a damn British passport in your back pocket. Get rid of your British passport then if you're so. So don't let me get vexed. And Gozzy, I'll just calm down.
Don't get vexed, brother. Listen, there's people who are. There's still some of us who are traumatized, right? There are some of us who confuse nationality with identity with, you know, the whole world belongs to me.
Come
if you
on.
ask me, right? Then look, my thing is I don't have to answer to nobody. I'm out there doing the work. When everyone's sleeping out, sometimes I'm out there doing the work. I'm doing work that brothers won't do. I'm going into places where other people won't go. I don't ask for accolades. I do not ask for accolades.
You deserve it. You deserve it.
You know what? It's teamwork, right? I couldn't do it without you all. But to the people who I can't address individually, just get the message out there, right? Shut your damn mouth. You know, I've nothing to say to me. Yeah? Unless you're out there fighting the fight, don't say nothing to me. That's that.
We love you, sister.
Love you too.
With Sister Rosanna, beloved. I want to give her a greeting, beloved, because that sister's a quiet, humble sister, you know, and yet she's got so much power. Sister Rosanna, how are you doing, my queen?
Give thanks. I'm very, very well. Yeah, give thanks. What we have here, this experience is nothing that we cannot handle, and it's everything that the ancestors and the universe have given us
to
move things forward, to bring into light and attention. And that's what this experience is.
I want you two to know, beloved, that they best not, beloved. We're not the scared to death Negroes of yesterday, beloved. They best not think about putting a hair of their. I don't want to cuss too bad word. They best not even think about. No, sister, I'm serious, beloved. Yes, them days are over, man. And I'm being very serious, sister.
It's a different time now.
See, and you've got an army they cannot see, beloved.
Thank you.
It'll be the worst thing in their minds, beloved. I'm just vexed with the online stuff that they're giving you, beloved. And
brother, they're not giving it to me, you know. They're not giving it to me because they can only give it to me if I take it. I don't take it. I hand it back. I give it back. I have my sword and my shield. I have the Most High, my biggest protection. I fear nothing and no one. It is that.
Brothers and sisters, you've heard it from the two queens. You know what I'm trying to say? If you're feeling Ngozi and Sister Rosanna, tell them to lick shop on Babylon. I want you to put that down, because the sisters are speaking to their own community now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah? They don't have to be speaky spokey, man. I'm going to tell you, sister, and God, I'm going to tell you, God is my witness. I was worried. I'm going to be very honest with you, sister, based on the teachings that I've been following. That, you know, when you do interviews with these global right-wing media, okay, beloved, you're dealing with another level of enemy. But
don't
sister,
be worried.
No. Listen to me, please, sister.
Yes.
I was very worried. I'm not going to lie to you, sister, because I knew the attack would come. But sister, as God is my witness, I sat down and listened to several interviews, and I said, all praises are due to Allah. Sister, you were phenomenal. The Most High had you bosom and guided you and your daughter and the various people I saw with you. I said, sister, I salute you, my queen.
Giving thanks. Don't forget, I have light sources everywhere in different places. You are one of the brightest shining ones. Sister Charmaine, you know, Simpson, you know those Kalechi, Dr. Shola. Listen, they're out there. I have did you see the Woman King? Right? We're all warriors.
Come on.
We are all warriors. And so I go back into that space very soon, actually. I'm going back in there. Yeah. Because
don't say too much. Don't say too much.
I am not going to, but this is my family, this is my community. And this is why if I'm going to speak to them, I'm going to speak to mine. Yeah. And family, you have to know, have to trust the ancestors are at work. This is the time. We cannot be just attacking each other, or those who have views what they think I should and shouldn't do. I can only follow my divine guidance. I can only walk my journey. I can't walk 10,000 journeys. So allow me, yeah? And if you see me on the roadside and I'm tilting to the left, just give me a little bit of water and some kind words. Let me do my thing. But I am going, but I love you all. And I just wanted to say a big thank you. Brother Andrew, I kneel before you.
I bow to you, sister. I bow
Give
to you,
thanks.
Queen. Give thanks. Brothers and sisters, come on. Come on, brothers and sisters. Rock, Stone, and Starfish. I don't know what I'm talking about right now. I'm trying to
brother, I love you. I love you too much. It's shameful the way I love you. Yeah? All right then. Blessed love.
Love you too. Sister Rosanna, salute you, my queen. And give my love to all your family, sister. All of your family.
Give thanks,
brothers and sisters, that's Warrior Queen, Sister Ngozi, Warrior Queen, Sister Rosanna, live on the Hidden Truth, talking to their own community here. Sister Katie, sorry to move from you straight away, but we only had a certain amount of time with Sister Ngozi. Brothers and sisters, I pray that you've enjoyed tonight's show. I am going to open the doors just for a few minutes. Sister Samira, are there any questions? Brother Jamie, are there any questions? I saw a lot of statements. Sister Katie was just blowing it up all night, and she didn't even pause for a second. But that's it. Sister Warrior Queen, are you there? Sister Katie, just 1 second, beloved.
Greetings, brother. You can hear me?
Warrior Queen, I can hear you, sister. Sister Warrior Queen, are you there? This
Yes,
sister
I'm here. Yes, I'm here. I'm here, brother.
All right,
Andrew.
just explain briefly who you are, sister, before you ask the question to Sister Katie.
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to quickly say thank you again for having me on the show. I'm from the Sickle Cell community, and I want to thank you, Brother Andrew, and all of the Hidden Truth family for your support. You know, you gave us great support in back our Sickle Cell Center, the George Marr Center in St. Anne's Hospital. We won it back in 2020, and it's just been refurbished, and we're ready to start, using it again. So we're going to be inviting the community to come down, share with us, so we can actually thank you properly. I just want to say thank you for that. But also, I wanted to speak to Sister Katie. Sister Katie, like for myself personally and my family, I can see how we are eligible for this Windrush. It's just to get the forms done and to get my dad down to Croydon next Sunday, because he's one of the elders that doesn't apply to me, and I'm trying to explain to him that it does. But what my issue is the sickle cell community. Apart from like housing, trauma, this type of thing, we've been mistreated medically. We've been we've been researched upon without permission. We've been refused medication, all that kind of stuff. And for me to try to explain to the sickle cell community, it's difficult. So I want to please invite you to come down to our Sickle Cell Center, for a little meeting, so you can explain to us how to complete these forms and how to evidence what we're saying. Because it's difficult when you're going up about these people that are trying to deny that we even exist, much less what they were doing to us, how to evidence it. So I would like to invite you to come down.
Yes, sis, I'd be very happy to come down and do an event. We should that's very interesting, because you're actually the first person that's come from the sickle cell community to ask me to come and do a presentation in relation to people that experience and suffer with sickle cell. So I am aware of some of the the mistreatment with being used as guinea pigs and stuff like that. I actually, funnily enough, I do have a friend that has actually started his own campaign in saying that he believes that they've used sickle cell as a kind of apologies if this offends anyone, but he believes that they use sickle cell as a kind of made up condition, and that the medication that that people have been given, because they said he had sickle cell and he was taking the medication that he's been taking has caused radiation in him. And apparently the radiation is what causes the skin to be affected and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. There's been a lot of drugs tested on us for other issues. Well, I will say, oh, they're giving it to us to help with the sickle cell condition, but they're actually testing drugs for other purposes. We've been used as guinea pigs, and that was especially like for the 60s, 70s, the 80s, you know, things that only just come into light, things that we knew, but we couldn't evidence. So yeah, I'm not going to deny anything that anybody believes, because if he believes that, I believe that with him.
Yeah, he's got research and stuff. I haven't really looked into it because I haven't done any up-to-date research on it, so I'd be happy to meet with you to discuss some of the key points that are currently affecting you, and I'll go away and research it and then add it to my presentation so that it's more relative when I come and do the meeting.
Okay, I want to say thank you to you. Thank you, Brother Andrew, for allowing me to ask Sister Katie in person. Thank you. You're doing a fantastic job in the community, my sister. Much
Thank you,
appreciated.
sis. You also. Thank you.
Oh,
We'll be in contact.
Thank you.
fantastic. We definitely connect the two of you together.
Thank you. Okay.
In view of the won't be able to go into live questions and answers right now. I can see several questions in the Q&A box. So Sister Katie, is it I think that you can actually see the questions as a panelist in the Q&A box.
I can see some of them, but it's gone a little bit fast, so I haven't saw all of them. Sorry.
The Q&A box, not the chat box.
Oh, sorry, the Q&A box. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Q&A box. Sister, if you can respond to those live, just type out the answers. So at least each one of those questions will be answered. You can just type.
Okay.
Just type them, and that will allow us to keep it, because we've gone over time in terms of the show itself. And so, brothers and sisters, those of you that asked questions, Sister Katie will respond directly to you in the Q&A box. I want to give a quick shout out to, I don't want to mention the sister's name, but the sister, you know who you, and the best TS English teacher. I'll see you tomorrow morning at school. You know you. I want to give love to you, sister, and your husband, who I know tuned in last week, and they fell in love with Sister Katie. Your Lord. Brothers and sisters.
Thank you, brother.
We're just out in sunny Portugal. I'm wanting to say, go on, Papa G.
Okay, so tonight we had our queen. I call her the Queen Windrush now. Queen Windrush. Sister Katie, live on air tonight for part 2, our family trauma and who is old. Sister Katie, is there any last words you would like to say to the community before we move on?
Yeah, I just want to encourage everybody to apply and do not be conscious that these agents are trying to discourage us to apply. They're supposed to be Windrush ambassadors and so-called ambassadors for 4 years. So why has nobody heard of you for 4 years, and why are you telling us not to apply? Everyone apply. We have to apply. Look what our family have been through. Look what we've been through. You know, we've been through a lot and we're still going through a lot. We need to liberate ourselves. We need to liberate ourselves financially, and we need to do it through this scheme. So please do all apply. If you have any questions, send them to Brother Andrew and he will send them to me on your behalf. Do attend my event if you're able to on the 11th of December, and look out for the flyers for my next events in the new year. Thank you.
Oh, sister, you are so powerful. You are so powerful. Brother and sister, that's Sister Katie Wilson Downey. We thank her for her heart and her love. As we said, brothers and sisters, we are on Hidden Truth. I'm going to make sure we have no shadow of a doubt. There is no mixed words. This sister is protected by God. This sister is protected by the Most High. This sister is loved by us. She has been standing by us day in and day out on every street corner. We want to show that sister that we love her so much. We want the whole world to understand that we love this queen. Don't get it twisted, man. And be very careful what you say about this sister. She's loved by us. She's loved by us. And be careful that you don't ask too many black people where we really come from. Don't I'm gonna say, if we want to, no, where do you come from? Because we have got proof that the deeper you dig, the blacker the history gets, brothers and sisters. You don't want us to start breaking down the origin of the UK. Who are the original people of the UK? So, you know, when you're saying where do you come from and where do your people come from, if we was to ask you that same question, where could you say? Could you say Spain? No. Can you say Portugal? No. Can you say Scotland? No. Can you even say Russia? No. Because no matter where you go, brothers and sisters, you will find Black Aborigine people. Were the original people of that land. So don't go there. Watch your mouth, brothers and sisters. Watch your mouth. Brothers and sisters, don't forget next week. We ain't playing, man. See, I can't drop a sister Katie, then next week we go soft. Katie will never talk to me again. Gauzy will never talk to me again. We're going to go hard next week, brothers and sisters. And opportunity, history next week's show. I can't wait for next week's show, brothers and sisters. We're going to make history. We want to know, do you want to be a part of this history? Because we've got breaking news. So next week's show, brothers and sisters, young, gifted, and Black with a question mark. Are you ready to make history? Are we going to build a nation that's going to stand on each other's shoulders? That's next week, brothers and sisters. Spread the going deep, and we're going to go in hard. Remember, never, ever, 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 ever give up, because the same attacks that you make on Sister Katie, the same attack that life has a funny way of going around in circles. And I know this because of the work that I'm doing, brothers and sisters, that very soon when they start attacking Brother Andrew, you're going to say, I know that Negro was up to no good. I know it, brothers and sisters. Don't think I'm surprised. I know when they attack me, oh my goody gumdrop, you're going to say, you know what? I never trusted him, because I remember back in 1976, I was going home with him one day after school and he stole some crisps out of my bag. These stories are going to